Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jimmy Garland. I'm the president of the Clarksville branch of the NAACP, and I'm also the vice president for Tennessee State Conference of the NAACP. We're hosting these forums so that we can educate our community on what it is that, on the people that are running to actually represent them. We have for our host tonight, Ms. Loretta Morris, who's the first vice president for the Clarksville branch of the NAACP. And I turn it over to you, Loretta.
Good evening, everyone. Again, we are hosting another round of our forum for Ward 11. And we have 3 candidates that is asking for your vote. Okay. And once we finish with this forum, hopefully you have a general idea who you want to vote for. Okay. We are going to give each of you 2 minutes to introduce yourself and to tell us what your platform is. Okay. And Mr. Brown, I'm going to ask you to start first.
All right. Well, first I want to thank y'all for hosting this event to help us get the word out about our platforms for what we see the future of Clarksville to be. My big things are the jobs, housing, and the growth that we have, which is the infrastructure because of the growth that. So those are kind of my big 3 topics, which most of the time people are always looking at housing and growth, the traffic. So those are some of the things that my mission is to try and help. We're going to progress. There's no question Clarksville's growing. We just got to do it responsibly so that we can continue to move forward in our community and build a better community for our kids as they grow up. We want them to grow up in a great place that we live in. You always talk, if you borrowed something from somebody, when you returned it, you gave it back in better condition than what you borrowed it in. And that's the way I kind of look at our community. We want to pass it on to our children in better condition than the way it was when we were brought up here. So those are some of my things, and that's what I'm working toward.
Okay, thank you. Ashley?
So yeah, thank you guys for hosting this forum for us. My name's Ashley Evans, and obviously I'm running for City Council Ward 11. I'm running just because I haven't felt like my voice or the voice of other young folks have been accurately represented in our council. I understand that I'm not your typical city council candidate. I'm not involved with realty. I'm not an ex-police officer. I don't own a small business. I am a mother, a student. I've worked in the service industry for as long as I can work, so I'm very personable and approachable. My goals while running for office include advocating for sustainability in our infrastructure and greenways, holding our police department accountable, and advocating for a less burdensome justice system. An easy way to do that, maybe not so easy way, but an attainable way to do that would be to start by decriminalizing, the possession of marijuana. I'm talking too fast and my mouth can't keep up. I'm sorry, y'all. And then lastly, just providing diversity in our housing market via more multi-family building construction, just because we don't really have a lot of affordable options for folks who maybe can't attain a home. So yeah, those are a couple things I really want to start advocating for.
All right, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Gary?
I am a small business owner. I'm retired now. I had my own business for about 30 years. I was able to develop a work ethic of honesty, integrity, and teamwork. I have been involved in the city since about 1980 on different committees, and I've been on the Planning Commission, the Board of Appeals for both the city and the county. I believe I have the necessary time, experience, and passion for our community to continue to be a member of the City Council. I will work hard to gain the approval and support of the residents in Ward 11, the City Council, and the City of Clarksville. I would appreciate your vote and confidence and support. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, now we are going to have a series of questions, and which I will give each of you 2 minutes to respond. What is your definition of tax incentive finance, TIF, and how would you think TIF should be applied to our community, our local community? And Jimmy, could you go first, please?
Sure. The TIFs that are given out to businesses to bring business here to help encourage jobs, and we need jobs here, so, but you got to look at money we're giving away and what is the return on that investment. It's just like, you're investing in a business. That's kind of what the city is doing, and they're investing in a business in hopes of gaining the tax dollars, the jobs, so that people will continue moving here. Then they turn around and spend that money in other businesses. So it's a constant flow of, you've got to look at, is it going to be worth the tax incentives for that business to come here? If you're giving away $1 million in tax incentives and you get employees, that's not worth it, to me. Now, if you give away, $5,000 as a tax incentive to somebody and they bring in 10, 15, 20 jobs, those people will in turn bring in and spend money in our community, which funds all of our sales taxes. They'll be moving here. So they'll spend money on housing. They'll spend money going out to eat. You look at some of those incentives, but you've got to look at it as for, is it going to be worth that investment? Like you're buying into a business to provide a service, So you're looking at that. And so you really just have to look at it to make sure that you're giving those incentives in the right way.
Give them an incentive up front.
Thank you.
That's paid
Okay,
back.
thank you. Ashley?
Yes, ma'am. So I will admit that I don't know too much about TIFs, but I do know kind of like the basics of what they do. I understand how TIFs can be appealing by bringing jobs into the city, but I do think that companies need to pay their fair share. We're all living here together. They move into our city, they're going to be here with us. I worry sometimes that these companies can be kind of predatory and inefficient when it comes to the economic revenue. For example, the Hemlock that was here, I'm not sure if that was started by a TIF, but nothing ever really came out of that, and that was a huge waste of money. But in another stance, a lot of these companies are already sure that they're going to be here in Clarksville. We're a growing city. We were rated the #1 city. So I don't think it's fair that some of them might use the benefits to help them in development while also burdening the taxpayers with revenue that could have been spent elsewhere. So it doesn't make sense to me that businesses might end up being subsidized even though they were already going to be here in the first place. I think we just need to be careful and not so eager to hand out those benefits.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
A lot of the tax incentives are given to large corporations that come to Clarksville. They get these tax incentives so that they'll invest the money in Clarksville and create jobs. There are tax incentives for small businesses. When they open up a business, they can sometimes apply for a tax incentive or be put in a tax incentive district. We need more small businesses to get these tax incentives. The money that's used in the tax incentives is used to fund different projects in Clarksville, or it could even be used for schools or whatever. I think that we need to concentrate over the next few years to try to get more businesses to locate in Montgomery County and use these tax incentives, not just the large corporations. Small businesses are the backbone of this community. I think we ought to really stress that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Citizens who are members of Black Lives Matter are holding protests advocating for racial justice and equality in cities across this nation. There are protesters of the organization in operation here in Clarksville. If you are elected to serve as your ward's council representative, how would you advise city government when responding to the demands made by Black Lives Matter advocates? Ashley?
Yeah, so I am proudly a Black Lives Matter advocate because Black Lives Matter, period. So the communication between our government and its people needs to be fluid. When a group of folks are coming to you and telling you that there's a problem or like there's a crisis, there's probably an issue that needs to be handled. The Clarksville Black Lives Matters movement has been extremely peaceful, and the local police worked with us and allowed us to exercise our right to protest. And I feel like that had a big part in keeping our protests peaceful, our initial protests. And the effort was collective. You know, there was communication between the protesters and the law enforcement that we have. So with this negative connotation that goes behind Black Lives Matters, I feel like people need to be listening more to the message. I think that sometimes folks get distracted by what's portrayed on the media, and that's just not what's happening here in Clarksville. So we protested for 93 days and were met with animosity on several occasions. But we were also supported by our police staff and our mayor. So I think that that was successful. We just need to keep the conversation going. There's no room for turning a blind eye, and community perspective is the most important factor.
All right, thank you. Gary?
I think we in Clarksville have been very lucky over the years that we've been able to sit down and talk about our issues and our problems by engaging in respectful and constructive dialogue. Our leadership now with Mayor Pitts at the helm has a zero tolerance for racism. I think we as citizens need to educate ourselves and take the time to listen to all people who have issues. We as individuals need to foster new relationships by reaching out to people and enjoying friendships across racial lines. We need to involve ourselves in activities that place us in an environment where we're exposed to different people of different racial and ethnic backgrounds. Every citizen in Clarksville needs to register to vote and then encourage them to go to the polls. The Black Lives Matters movement has been great in this city. It's been a disaster in others. And I think as long as we can keep it peaceful and we can discuss the issues, I think it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Jimmy?
All right. Well, the Black Lives Matter movement is progressing and pushing a good message. It needs to be heard. And that's what we got to do. We got to have that open dialogue between everyone so that we can see how other people feel. Each individual person may not, see it from that side or this side or from anybody else's view unless somebody sits down and talks. And I think that's what's helped our community here, especially with being a military base. We have a diverse community here. And I think we have a lot of discussions here. So we've got to look at those things to make sure that we keep that dialogue open. It's kind of like in the Bible, the shepherd who was tending his flock of 100 sheep and the one went astray. Well, he didn't just ignore that one. He went checking on that one that was in danger and may have been injured. So if we have that one that is not feeling safe or is in danger, we've got to reach out and make sure that we communicate and talk. We go find that sheep and bring them back in to where everybody is as one, because we're all citizens. We're all Christians, well, at least I am, and probably a lot of other people, but Jesus didn't decipher between races. We love everyone. We welcome everyone. We got to have that dialogue is what we have to have. And we have to listen as public servants. We have to listen to our constituents. We have to listen to the citizens to see what issues they are having so we can address it. And I think our police department here does do a good job. And it's just having that open dialogue. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so the next question would be, what is your definition of Title VI? What, if anything, could you do to make sure the program is being executed in accordance with federal mandate? And Gary, would you go first, please?
I really believe it boils down to being able to communicate. A lot of times we don't understand the issues and we don't understand what's involved in the Title VI problem or project. And I think we need to get together and sit down and discuss it. I'm not an expert on Title VI. I've been lucky enough this year to be involved with the Human Relations Commission, and I'm learning about Title VI. And I hope that I can do some good to help the rest of the citizens in my ward and the city of Clarksville to learn more about the Title VI options and how we can improve it and how we can all become useful and part of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Jimmy?
Well, the Title VI, it's pretty much, you got to treat everybody the same way. I mean, there's no one's better than the other. We're all equal. So they've had to put this Title VI in to straighten out some issues that we've had in the past. And it's great. And that's what we need is that open dialogue and to be able to communicate and see what issues other people are having. Or if I'm having problems, other people listening to that. So we want to make sure that we are listening to everyone, treating everyone the way that we want to be treated. I wouldn't want to be treated differently. You wouldn't want to be treated differently. We want everyone to be treated equally. So, the Title VI is what is trying to move that to where everybody has to understand we're all equal. We should be treated the same way. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Ashley?
Yeah, so I know a little bit about Title VI. I don't think the verbiage includes LGBTQIA folks or disabled people. I do feel like that needs to be expanded in the verbiage. I think it might be implied. But yeah, I'd absolutely support anything that needs to be done on a city level. I know a lot of that goes into like the federal level too. So I'm just not quite sure what isn't being done. So if I were to ever find that out, I would definitely kind of fulfill that space and advocate for what the right thing to do would be going forward, because civil rights are human rights baseline.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that answer. Okay. Studies have determined that professional civilian oversight of law enforcement agencies can transform organizational culture in a positive way. Changes in technology, widespread access to the internet, smartphones, 24/7 access to continual loops of news and organized activism are just a few of the factors nudging law enforcement towards the future of professional civilian oversight. Across the United States, policies have changed drastically, and professional civilian oversights could be exactly what is needed to regain legitimacy, boost morale, increase the hiring of diverse candidates, and improve public safety. As an elected representative of your ward, would you support the creation and sanction of a citizen review board for the city of Clarksville? Please explain your answer, pro or con. And Ashley, can you go first?
Yeah, so I haven't really come to a specific answer for this. I've definitely thought about it quite a bit. I believe if the review board was done right, then I would be willing to support it. And if our community decided that that was the best option for us, I think review board, should include everything from reviewing police policy and procedures to being able to review the complaints and allegations against our police officers. So I know a lot of people don't really have a lot of hope in review boards just because they're terrified of the bias and think that these types of boards are basically rigged to fail. So I honestly believe that if these boards have the true intent, they have the potential to hold police accountable, and they have the potential to possibly diminish conflict of interest and practically like disrupt the code of silence that we see a pattern of in police offices. So if we were to put this together, I think we just need to put a lot of thought into it, and then a lot of thought into who's going to be included and how it's going to function. So I don't think that this board should be completely made up of civilians, because honestly, we don't really have the point of view of the police officer. So I think including emergency responders, retired police officers, and as well as community members, maybe lawyers, social workers, and people from all backgrounds to kind of cut out that reputation of these kinds of things having like a good old boy oversight.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ashley. Gary? You on mute, hon.
A lot of the makeup of the review board is a big issue. I think it depends on who's on that board. There's been talk that it would be a diverse group of people, all civilian, nobody involved in law enforcement. But I think it needs to be a little bit different than that. Clarksville already has a police department already has a review board, and it's made up of a pretty diverse group of people as far as their officers and all go. I think if we're going to have a civilian review board, it ought to be made up of the civilian community. But I think it also should include some police officers, because there could be technical and other issues that only they could explain. And I think it needs to be a non-biased group. I think it ought to be a group that you change every few years, not a group that stays on the board forever. I think if we work together and discuss it, we could come up with a review board that would work. But I think it needs to be a lot more discussion in it and exactly how many people and who all is going to be involved in it. I would support it. I would want more information, but I have a very open mind, and I think I can do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Gary. Jimmy, please.
All right. Well, for a review board to be successful, it has to not have a bias. So when there is an incident with law enforcement, normally if there's a shooting or something, officer involved shooting, the district attorney's office is the one that investigates a lot of those. What they do is they'll call in the TBI. which is a third party. So the DA's office oversees that investigation there, so that it is a third party and not just an internal investigation. For the review board to, I think, to work would need to be with the DA's office. It is outside of the local government's hands. I think they should work, if we did it, work with the DA's office to get input from them. They would need some training because not everyone understands how everything happens with law enforcement. Officers got to make split-second decisions. So you want to have that input from others to get, just like, it's like a jury almost, just maybe not with criminal charges there, but the DA's office would be looking at the criminal charges, which is an outside agency. But if it, if it worked with the DA's office to get the information going, then they could separate themselves from the local, see the local representatives, and it be kind of a second, third party looking at incidents. So I think, it has to be non-biased. And if you get enough variety of people in there and you work with the DA's office or work through them, that way it is. So that would be the way that it would, I think it would need to work.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. Local contracts offered to local businesses are not being equally distributed. Currently, less than 1% of contracts for services offered to businesses are being offered to minority businesses. What can or will you do to ensure contracts are better distributed to allow minorities to participate in the wealth of this community? Gary?
I think it needs to be an educational process developed by maybe the city, because I think, I'm sure, are you talking about city contracts, I suppose?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that the city needs to help the small business community, especially in the minorities, to learn about how to apply for a contract. Some contracts have some guidelines that they may not know about. I think the city does a pretty good job of getting the contract proposals out or the bids out to different parts of the community. But I think sometimes we just don't have enough minorities that are actually willing to bid or want to bid or know how to bid. I hope that the Human Relations Commission some this year can have some seminars like we've had in the past to help people learn how to bid on city contracts. And I'm a big supporter of giving everybody a shot, especially local small business people. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Jimmy?
But, I would like for all the contracts to go to a local business. But some of the problem is you have laws that you have to follow by when a bid goes out and how you evaluate the bids. Years ago, the city used to have a 5% waiver area flexible point for if a local business was within 5% of another business that was outside the community, they would give it to the local business. But they found out it was against the law. So we need to make sure that we are getting the word out about the bids that are going out and assisting people in learning how to bid on stuff, bid on those projects. But we still have to follow the laws, the purchasing laws and what you can and can't do as for your leadway on awarding the bids. So we can get out there and make sure that everybody's trained in how to know where to look, where to find the bids that our local agencies are putting out, and then try and assist them. Because you would think that a local business will be able to do it cheaper since they're not having to pay for people to come stay in a hotel. But it's not always the case. Some bigger companies, cut the prices because they don't pay their employees the same. So if we had ways that we could help encourage the local businesses to bid on those and to get their pricing, comparable, that's what we have to work toward.
Okay, thank you. Ashley?
Yeah, so you said 1% of minority businesses are being passed.
Yes.
So that to me kind of sounds like accepting these businesses are not being intentional in their inclusion. I am a big advocate for being intentional in your decision. So we need to be creating an easily accessible outlet for minority businesses. And by that, I mean, make it obvious where these resources are. You know, if we're trying to lift minority communities up, there's no need in making it harder for them, because it already is. So just the advocacy for awareness and taking intentional steps to lift these communities up, and offer them the space to learn about how that can be more easily attainable for them is something that needs to be happening.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Okay. In our work as advocates for citizens of this community, we are hearing a wealth of complaints of police intimidation. As a city council person, how would you seek to improve on the quality of service being provided by officers assigned to the Clarksville Police Department? Ashley?
So having heard a lot of these complaints from folks I know personally, I seriously think that we need to make more resources for training. I do support our police. I don't want anybody to think that I don't. Even in this current political climate that we have, our police force specifically, and the changes that they've made. However, I do think that we are lacking in some areas. I know that they're making efforts to do the best they can with the resources that they have. And what we really need to be continuing to do is holding them accountable. We need to be reviewing all of these complaints and looking for patterns, and then addressing that via retraining, or if they're serious enough, letting them go. We don't need bad folks on our police, I almost said police team, sorry, in our police force. So there are a few smaller things I could complain about, like transparency. I've sent a few emails to the chief myself, and I always get canned responses. So that's also unacceptable. I feel like if someone, especially a citizen of Clarksville or Montgomery County, if they're coming to the chief and asking specific questions, I feel like they're entitled to get those answers, especially if they're looking to see how the community can help our police officers.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Jimmy?
All right, so our police department has a professional unit, and they review all the complaints that come in. When a complaint comes in, even to the supervisors, those are forwarded to a specialized unit that they review all the complaints, and they look for issues. I believe in the past month, the city has fired 3 officers, and it may not have been from a complaint, but it is from something that was done that did not meet the standards. So I think our police department is doing a good job. You're never going to have a perfect police agency, because none of us are perfect. There was only one that was perfect, and he's in heaven. But everyone, every business, every job, there's going to be bad apples, and it's the responsibility of the other officers also to point that person out, because that one is the one that gives the rest of them a bad name. So we want to make sure that we stay on top of that. And as the city council, we can make sure that we're supporting the police department and their professional integrity unit to make sure that they're getting the resources they need and access to the equipment, videos, whatever that they need to review incidents. So as long as we're supporting them and making sure that, I mean, I think they're doing a good job. And I think that's why we have such, you know, we haven't had the major incidents here that have happened in other places. We have that open dialogue. And if anybody wants to make a complaint on an officer, they can call the police department and ask for the professional integrity unit and make that complaint, and they will follow up on it. So I think as long as we're supporting them and listening to them, and if we as a city council, we get a complaint, somebody calls us to make a complaint, we need to make sure that we know who to call to make sure we forward that information on so that it can get addressed. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jimmy, for that. Gary?
I think complaints are good. I think they need to be addressed by the right people. I think sometimes that we ought to look at complaints kind of like customer service. If you have a problem and you tell somebody about it and you have no fix for it, then you need to be able to tell somebody else. I think Chief Crockwell and the City Police Department do an excellent job of trying to get to having their officers trained to do the right thing all the time. But if there is a problem, I think that the person ought to complain to the police department and their people should look into it. But there's another way. If they don't get satisfaction that way, they can always call their city councilman. They can call the mayor. The mayor is big on customer service. He wants everybody treated fairly and with respect, and I back him up on that. So if there's a problem somewhere, somebody's not being treated correctly, if I know about it, I'll try to help and fix it.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. The city of Clarksville was recently voted best city to live in. With this designation, there will be a mass infiltration of residents locating throughout our community and county. As a member of the city, what is your plan to address the increased congestion that will accompany the increase in population? Jimmy?
Well, we have the growth coming. You know, they need to build 2,000 houses a year just to try and keep up with the over 4,000 people that are moving here each year. So with those housing needs comes infrastructure. If we can't keep up on the infrastructure, which we haven't, we're behind. So we really need to put some focus in on the infrastructure. We still got to keep building houses, because if we don't build houses, all of a sudden we've stopped building houses, there's none available. The cost of a house goes through the roof. And then, you know, if my house value is 100,000 now and all of a sudden there's no houses available and all of a sudden it's 200,000, guess what the property is going to do? They're going to raise your tax rates, you know, because of the property value. So we've got to keep coming. And we also have to look at how we strategically place the housing, whether it be single family homes or multifamily dwellings. We've got to look at the roads that can handle that. Because, you know, if you have 100 acres, you know, depending on if it's R1 to R4, you could be between 1,000 and 3,000 people on that same 100 acres. So you look at those things, and the roads handle it. So we want to be welcoming to people that are coming here. And that's why they're coming here, because we are such a nice community. You know, we try to treat each other with respect and honesty and the way we want to be treated. So we've got that moving and keep the respect for everyone. We also got to look at the infrastructure. So if we put a bunch of houses in one area and the traffic can't handle it, well, everybody's upset then. So we just got to look at how we plan out for everything that's coming in. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ashley?
So a lot of key words we've been hearing with a lot of city council candidates have been smart growth, responsible growth, and these things are very important. And I hope that we're going to keep talking about that conversation, because Clarksville has a pattern of waiting till it's an emergency to expand a road or to enact. So with state roads being a majority of our congested areas, I think that we need to continue pushing our state to fund us with those resources, especially being the, are we?
Fifth.
Fifth largest.
No, I feel like we're like the second or third largest growing city in,
Fifth.
largest growing, like fastest growing.
Oh.
Especially being a fast growing city, basically, that's my point, sorry. So we need to also be willing to put in the work to estimate where we need to be expanding and working on our infrastructure. We need to stop approving these zonings knowing that the roads cannot handle the traffic that's going to be implemented on them. So I strongly feel that our developers are determining where growing is happening right now. So that's majorly causing an urban sprawl. We only have a certain amount of land that we can grow on, and we need to be taking advantage of it smartly. And we need to be taking the control back on how Clarksville is going to grow, because it's chaos.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Gary?
Right now, we have the fewest number of available lots to build houses on that we've had in about 30 years. We have about 900 and something lots that are ready to build on. And we have another 3,000 probably in the pipeline, land that's been developed. The city council and the planning commission really don't decide where growth's going. Growth's going where people are willing to sell their family-owned farms or large acreages that they have. And the developers have to try to buy that land if they can, get it rezoned to build houses on. Smart growth, if you ask 10 different people what smart growth is, you'll get 10 different answers. To me, smart growth is the better use of land. It's to put more houses on smaller lots. The price of an average lot in Clarksville right now today is $50,000. And if you start putting that on the price of a house, you can see why the average price of a house is almost $200,000. I think if we work together and try to get some of the areas that don't have a lot of development in it, if we can get some development to go in there with maybe some smaller houses on smaller lots, that maybe we can get houses that more people can afford. When you have growth, you have a lot of issues. And we can talk 2 days about growth, and we can talk 2 days about traffic. But I think working together as a community, we can solve some of these problems. Community input is so important on zoning cases. People have got to call their ward rep and all of the other city councilmen and mayors and mayor and tell them what they think about the problems. Because more input we have, the better choices we can make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that is basically all the questions that I have tonight.
Did Mr. Brown answer?
Yes, everybody answered that question.
Okay.
Mr. Brown was first. Okay, I got through that one without missing anybody. Okay, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Okay, I didn't see anything from the community that wanted to ask any questions. Okay, so thank all of you for coming. Thank you for being patient and answering our questions. Okay, we hope that everybody got out of what they needed, okay, to make an informed decision as to who they would like to see as their city council for Ward 11. Okay, I want to remind people that the early voting starts on the 14th through the 29th, and the general election is actually November the 3rd. Okay, so please get out to vote. Okay, this is a very important election. Get out to vote and vote for the candidate of your choice. Okay, now let me turn this back over to Jimmy Garland.
I would like to give each of the candidates 2 minutes to actually close out.
Thank you.
Ashley first.
Yeah, so I just want to tell everybody that I would be honored to be their representative for Ward 11. I do always encourage folks to be educated on their decision and vote based on who they feel is a better representation for them. No matter what a person's creed is or what they believe, it's important to be able to express that right. That's why we live in a democracy. I also want to remind people that early voting is conducted at the Election Commission. I did get a couple of emails and DMs asking where they could early vote. So yeah, the location on your voter's registration is for Election Day. And you can, sorry, I'm struggling. I'm like, what else do I need to fit in here? You can check out my website. It's ashleyevans411.com. You can read my biography as well as my platform. I also have a link to my email there if you'd like to send me any of your concerns or questions. I'd be willing to answer them as fast as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
All right. I just wanted to say, again, thank y'all for hosting this event. And that's what this is about. You have to be in touch with your constituents. And however we need to do that is what we've got to do to get the word out so we can get feedback from our constituents and the citizens of Clarksville and even the guests that are coming here to visit our community. We need to hear that input because the decision that I think might be the best may not be the best. It may take that person to call and talk to us and explain their viewpoint, and it sets a light bulb off in your head going, you're right. So we want to make sure that we're listening to our constituents. I'm on Facebook at Jimmy L. Brown for Ward 11. You can reach me there. My email is jbrown7291@bellsouth.net. And my phone number is 931-305-0010. So if you have questions that you want to send to me, please send them. I'll try to find the answers. If I don't know, which I don't know everything, but it's all in who you know to get a hold of to find the answer or to relay that information. So, reach out to us, to any of us, and vote who you think would be the best one for the position. I'd appreciate your vote, and I'm sure everybody else would, but I just want to ask for your vote and your support in this city council race. Thank you.
Gary?
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Garland, for having us here tonight in the Clarksville branch of the NAACP, for inviting us to participate in this political forum. I'm a lifelong resident of Clarksville. I've been a small business owner, so I can relate to small business people that have a problem. I have been very active in the community since about 1980. I have a lot of experience on the Planning Commission and other boards and commissions. I think that experience will help me on the city council to make the qualified decisions that we need to make. I believe in the city of Clarksville. I'm very passionate about the city. I would appreciate your vote and support. And you can go to my Facebook page. You can ask me questions. You can call me. My email address and phone number on the city website. And again, thank you for having us tonight.
You're welcome. Again, we'd like to thank my first vice for actually doing an excellent job as hosting this event tonight, as always. We had a couple of questions on there about the local police, and don't go away thinking that the NAACP have a problem with the police. We don't have a problem with the police, but we don't want a problem to culminate So we want to be what you call it, proactive versus reactive. We spend a lot of time talking with the chief. We talking with the mayor. We be in their office talking to them about things that are very important to our people. Even though there are no killings, there's no murders in Clarksville between police and the citizen, there are some killings. And the bottom line is that's when somebody shoot at a police officer and the police officer have a right to shoot back, because both of they have just as much right to go home as the person that they are trying to apprehend. But we do have a lot of people complaining about the way they're being treated when they come to their residence. That is an issue that we need to actually deal with. The question on community review boards. Yes, we want a community review board made up of people that understand the work ethics of police officers. We want to have retired judges on that review board. We want to have retired attorneys, criminal and civil, on that review board. But we also want to have people from the community, that when an individual have a question or have a problem or think they have a problem, they have a board that they can actually go to that can actually get to the chief of police, get to the mayor, get to whoever they need in order to get it resolved so that everybody can make the right decision about that situation. No, we're not we don't want a getcha group. We want a group that's going to enhance policing, not distract from what they are supposed to do. I'm not qualified to be a police officer. I mean, a police critic. But the bottom line is I am qualified to be an advocate for the people that I represent. On behalf of the Clarksville branch of NAACP, again, we thank you for coming out. We know that the Ward 11, whichever one of you are picked, they will have a great representative. And we encourage you to continue to stay involved, because you cannot get anything done if you're not up front. And a lot of times, you can get things done from the back, but if you're up front, then you have a very big seat. So good night. God bless you. And we hope that you've learned something, because I have, and we'll see you on the other side.